Well, hello all. Welcome to our very first session, getting to teach a little bit and share some stories about some common challenges that doctors experience. My name is Chris Yee, and this is,
Uh, I'm Jeff Cohn. Great
and
being with you guys and gals.
yeah, and our organization is called The Thriving Doctor, and today's topic is going to be around overwhelm. Maybe we can just say a little bit, Jeff, about why we chose overwhelm as a first topic. Why is this one an important one?
Uh, it, it's a theme that we hear from many of the docs that we're working with. And um, it it feels so real and appropriate to situations that many people find themselves in, and it's actionable, both in the moment and from a like preventative perspective. So I think it's a great place to start.
Oh, I love that you said actionable, because by the end of this video, hopefully we'll be able to offer some ideas or tools or inspire some thoughts about how each of you can take an action towards recognizing overwhelm and then being able to deal with it in a productive way. So the other thing that is so interesting is that this idea of overwhelm comes in so many different flavors. Jeff and I, we teach a type of coaching called positive intelligence, and we also work with a number of different doctors, hundreds of doctors by this point, and work in individual coaching as well as small groups. And in these small groups, we hear so many different flavors of overwhelm, and we'll even use other words for it, like work-life balance, burnout. There's so many words around this experience. And can you share, Jeff, with us maybe an experience um, that you've heard about around one flavor of overwhelm from somebody that you've coached or talked to, even maybe yourself or whatever?
Sure. So um, a lot of the feeling of overwhelm relates to um, having a plate that's full and being asked to do more. It's oftentimes an ask that feels like, sure, I would love to do that. It's something that I like to do. I'm good at. I feel great that they're asking me. Um, and yet it winds up making the plate even fuller and and contributing to this sense of I can't do anything well. Even though my life is full of things that I want to be doing, I want to be a great doc. I want to be on these committees. I want to be a great parent, spouse, whatever roles. I want to take care of myself and exercise and eat right. That it all comes together in a way that I can't do anything well, and it accumulates accumulates such that this sense of being overwhelmed is the result.
Yes. And I want to just focus on a couple words there, and that is it's a feeling that I can't do anything well. But in our experience, when we're working with doctors, when they tell us what they're doing, we're like, wow, you're actually doing it. You are doing well. You are making that small progress in the thing that you think is important, that you value. You're doing it, and you're doing it at the best as you can with the resource that you have. but oftentimes people will feel like I'm not doing it well and I'm not doing anything well. And it's all spiraling down into I just can't do it at all.
Mhm.
Which is this use again, focusing on this feeling of overwhelm. And I really wanted to differentiate that overwhelm is not a situation, it's a feeling. And why that's important is because a feeling is something that's transient. It's something that derives from your perception of what's happening in your life. But it's not necessarily a situation. Uh, that is a true thing. It's a feeling. Do you want to say a little bit more? I know in the beginning you said that it's something that we can learn to deal with better, this feeling of overwhelm. What are some things that you've been able to see some of your clients or even yourself improve when you get this feeling of overwhelm?
So I think what you just said about recognizing it as a feeling is hugely important, is to appreciate that there's a choice aspect, some degree of um, choosing to embrace this feeling of overwhelm or step away from it. Say, no, I know that historically maybe I've responded to situations like this in this way, but now I choose to say, no, I'm going to do things in a different way. Just having that mental control to be able to do that is part of taking a different pathway out of that situation. And in our positive intelligence, or use PQ as a shortcut to saying all that. So in our PQ approach, it's engaging with the parts of our brain where various positive emotional centers reside. And so, think of whatever the circumstances are that led to this feeling of overwhelm. Maybe it's being asked to be on one more committee that you really would love to be on. It lines up with a skill that you have, and it's in an area that you enjoy, and yet it's resulting in this feeling of overwhelm. So, what's a mindset that could carry you forward well in that situation? So take the good that's in there, this feeling of respect that your colleagues have for you, um, and ride on that, and this feeling that I'm loved by others, I'm appreciated by others. It's ultimately a positive that I'm getting all these invitations, and there's some choice that I'm going to make that includes what's best for me, what's best for my family, if I have a family that I care about, and that I'm going to do it in a way that feels connected with who I choose to be as a person, and with the recognition that it's what I see as the best choice for now, and knowing that the way it may play out may be different than what I'm imagining, but I'm doing the best I can right now, and I'm patting myself on the back for making that kind of decision.
Yeah, I'm hearing noticing, this noticing many things. Um, acknowledging that their situation is challenging, but also noticing that piece, which is like great, that I'm doing this thing and I'm also being invited to do this and I'm doing the best I can. Um, Recognizing kind of the resources that I have right now, and kind of just giving some self-love to doing the best I can in these small steps that I'm taking. And I also have a colleague who's saying that I'm not doing a good job. And I also have a wife who's saying you're not getting home in time. And I have 30 charts that I haven't completed. And that feels overwhelming as I hear that story. And I'm wondering, what is some ways that we can understand the situation and utilize the situation and kind of the emotion, um, to convert it into something that's helpful? You say a little bit about, um, in that situation. I'm a new leader, I have a new role. I'm doing my best. I'm getting some negative feedback about like doing it perfectly. Um, my wife is also saying, "Hey, like you're not coming home on time." The kids are, maybe not happy about, how I'm showing up for them, and I have, 30 charts I haven't completed. Can
Mhm.
you say a little bit about that situation and what would seem like it's obvious you feel overwhelmed, you know, and how can we think about that?
Right. Um, so what you're describing, we hear that so often from the docs that we're working with. Um, and I think that, you know, not to say I'm making a diagnosis here, but I think what often is how people get into situations like you're describing is that um, we we feel it's our job to say yes to what all these things that are being asked of us. And so, um, whether it's because we want to be a good citizen, whether our ego gets stroked by being asked to be on another committee, whether it does feel like, this is who I am as a person. I want to be involved in that initiative that lines up with something that I'm good at. Um, Still, the end result is us being in a situation where we do have 30 charts that still need to be um, completed. And we are showing up late. And my dad was a surgeon, and I ate enough super well done meat for dinner when I was a kid because the meal that was supposed to be served by 7 o'clock didn't get served until 7:45 when my mom said, all right, we're just going to eat and dad'll eat when he gets home. But meanwhile, the meat was shoe leather at that point, and nobody enjoyed the situation and the experience very much. So, um, that's what happens. Those are the choices that physicians make. And so, learning how to say no to at least some things, um, make choices that allow you to, stop when the plate is as full as you choose to have it be. Um, Even though you're saying no to some stuff that, in theory you would like if in a perfect world, but it's not a perfect world. It's a real world. And so how do you have that ability? Um, how do you have the ability to make somebody feel bad? At least, or you imagine they may feel bad by you saying no. but you're doing it with your shoulders back and this feeling like I'm for the right reasons making this choice to, protect me, to protect my family, to help me feel like I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, one beautiful thing I think you said there that I would really love for everyone to take on is, what are you prioritizing? And each of us are going to decide on what we're going to prioritize. But the one thing that has benefited most of my clients has been prioritizing yourself. And that has a lot of different connotations of what that means. Well, I'm just gonna, just spend all my time for me, and so some people get a little bit like, oh, I'm selfish if I prioritize myself. But I want to be a little bit more nuanced in when I say prioritizing yourself. And that is really, I'm prioritizing my self-development, my mental fitness, so that I can sort out what's most important in my life, so that I can recognize what actions need to change or do different things in different ways to do the thing that is most important to me, which may be my job. It may be my kids. It may be my spouse. But I don't know that if I don't prioritize my self-development. What's been your experience in what self-development means, or how that is an important priority?
Before going there, Chris, maybe since this is our first session, just say a little more about what you mean when you say mental fitness.
Oh, okay, yes. Okay, well, mental fitness, I'm going to say is, and this really applies to overwhelm, because let's go back to, well, let me even just like read a definition of what one person said overwhelm meant. Let's see, can I get this thing going here? And this is from JAMA. And let me just get this is from Cohn, JAMA, October 29th, 2022, Psychological Stress and Disease. And he said, overwhelm is when an individual perceives that environmental demands tax or exceed his or her adaptive capacity. And one word I really want to focus on is perception. Perception. And so when we talk about overwhelm is a feeling that we have based on a perception of many things that are going on. 30 charts, my wife, those things are happening. Those are actually happening. But what's also happening is that we're trying to make sense of it. And so we perceive a certain thing. And then when we start to perceive a certain thing, like, oh my gosh, I'm not a good dad, I'm not a good doctor, those are perceptions and stories that we create in our mind that lead to this feeling of overwhelm. So when we talk about self-development and mental fitness, then we're talking about how are we able to take these stimulus, these things that are actually happening, and then being able to make meaning out of it in a way that helps us to take action that is going to move us forward in the thing that we want to create, or even know what we want to create. That's part of self-development and mental fitness, is even knowing what we want, what it is that we're going towards. And again, why emphasizing self-development and me, number one, is because if I keep doing things because of what I perceive other people want me to do, then I'm never going to feel good, and I'm never actually going to be able to impact the world I want to impact it the best way I can, because I keep doing things from other people's perspective, what I think other people want. So part of mental fitness is being able to recognize in myself, what am I here to do? who am I? What is it that I am wanting to bring to this world at its greatest level, within me? And so a lot of what mental fitness is being able to really get quiet and listen to what's happening inside of me, and then being able to organize it, so I can start taking all this stuff that's happening and then making sense of it so I can kind of move forward towards the thing that I want to create. And in my case, I was somebody who had a new leadership job. I was creating a new um, family medicine residency program. You know, um, I was creating a nurse practitioner residency program. I was the lead physician at a FQA, federally qualified community health center as a family medicine doctor. I was a new father. I was, trying to be a husband that was supporting his wife, whose parents were very ill and moved into our house to live full time, and we were taking care of them at being ill. So those were the real things that were happening. And in my earlier stages, I just kept trying to respond every time. My father-in-law fell again in the middle of the night. Okay, get up, respond to the thing. Yes, it happened to like Chris. You weren't being a great preceptor. Oh God, so I just kept reacting to all of the little stimulus that were happening. And it took me a while to recognize, oh, actually, I can't just keep reacting. I need to actually take a moment to learn how to understand who I am, what is it that I really want to accomplish, so that I can interpret all these different stimuli that are happening in a way that it's going to help me to keep moving forward to the thing that I want to create. So in this instance, I decided that one of my most important things was to be a father who's deeply connected with his kids, and I wasn't being that when I was coming home from work, feeling overwhelmed by things, and trying to read to the kids, but then not being connected to them at all, thinking about something else while I'm like trying to read to them. And so as I developed my mental fitness, then I was able to separate and value the work separate, that's done. And now I'm going to go to for this value of being with my kids in a present moment. So that's just a little bit what I mean by mental fitness, and how it's important to prioritize our self-development as we are experiencing more and more overwhelm.
Yeah, I love that. And as you were telling that story about yourself, it reminded me of one about my past, when I was still a full-time hematologist oncologist, a role that I felt was really core to who I was at the time. And I was committed to doing the best job for these sick patients that I was caring for. And there was one hospital where our job was primarily, but for a time, the group that I was part of decided to also set up a satellite clinic at this hospital that, to be honest with ourselves, we knew was kind of a third-rate hospital. And the docs who were working there were not the kind of docs that we would have ideally chosen to be working with as colleagues. And there was this kind of feeling, it was the hospital who was theirs primarily to serve the blue collar union of the city. Feeling of maybe cutting corners and maybe someone paying someone else under the table and stuff like that. Anyway, it really, we were doing a clinic there. It was really inefficient. You'd order an important test and it would never get done. And the patients we were seeing were sick. I mean, they had serious stuff. And so one clinic session that didn't go well, I went to the nurse who was running the clinic and was complaining about something that I thought was important for this sick patient that I was trying to see. And she looked at me and said, you know, Dr. Cohn, maybe you shouldn't be seeing patients here. And she was saying it, you know, I'm not even, I don't know what the rationale for her saying it, but I said to myself and then to her, thank you very much. That's exactly what I needed to hear. And so I went back to my partners and I said, I'm done. This is not where I choose to practice. So I won't be going back to that clinic. I won't be seeing patients at that hospital anymore. You know, did I feel like I was kind of abandoning them a little bit? Yes. And I was saying the priority for me right now is to be the kind of doc that I choose to be for the type, you know, the patients that I choose to provide the kind of care I want to. And in order to do that, I need to say no to this that is creating this, you know, sense of conflict, or, you know, I can't do the job that I want to do. So anyway, it reminded me of being in that situation.
That's a great story. And it's easy to say, oh, well, you should have, you know, a doctor should, you know, and these shoulds are, again, these judgments that we create in our own head that we think someone else is saying about us. And I think I really want to drive home this point that is related to self-development and the action step, because I'd like to move into action steps now, or tools that we can use to help us when we're struggling with this overwhelm experience. And one of the most powerful things that has been a habit for me to create in this journey of self-development is actually just to create space in my day for my own output. Now, I want to define what that means. And maybe I'll just first say what input is. So what input is I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I look at my email, and then I listen to the radio, and then I you know, I listen to my wife telling me what needs to happen today. That's input. Now, how many people out there spend most of their day taking an input? Input, input, input. And so you're always responding to the input. So part of the self-development journey and putting yourself number one is to be able to create some space so you can do some output. And for you, I imagine there was a time when you were experiencing that like, this doesn't feel right, that you had to sit down and maybe write a little bit, like, you know, reflect what's right for me, you know, and that takes a little bit of time and space, and also believing in yourself enough to give yourself that space to do output. So just very concretely, what can output be? For me, output is going to be first just relaxing and not thinking at all. That's just, interestingly, the first part of my output day is just to sit and breathe and just focus on breathing, so that when I do sit down and do a little bit of output, that I'm kind of clear-minded. And then my output for me is going to be writing. But I've also learned to do some output by sharing stories with you, Jeff, sometimes, you know, as a colleague who can help coach me through things, you know, asking help for you to listen to my story. Sometimes my wife, that's some output, and I found that a lot of doctors are hesitant maybe to share their output with others or with themselves even. And so to bring this to a bit of a closure here on this idea is, can we create every day some space where we have the safety and time to just do a little bit of output?
Yeah, I love that idea of output. And, thinking of me at that stage of my career, I knew nothing about input, output. I wasn't self-aware enough to have those concepts. And yet, what I think I did have that is important in helping people navigate these situations that can lead to overwhelm is I've always had the ability to love myself. Um, in our PQ model, we talk about our judge. One of the ways that we sabotage situations, and I've got a pretty strong judge, and it's mostly aimed at others and at situations, and not at myself. I think many physicians do judge themselves very harshly. So in a situation where you're feeling overwhelmed, to have the ability to tap into those priorities that you spoke of, and say, what, for myself, for what I hold most dearly, this is the situation, or this is the choice that I choose to make right now, and not shove it aside, not listen to the voice of your inner judge, your inner critic that's using that should word, but to say no, underneath that, there's this core of me that is where my values live, where my priorities live, and this is the best I can do for me, for that part of me that I hold most dearly right now. So, being able to get into that inner you and to listen to that, I think is an important part of, being the person you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to convert that maybe into a tool that somebody could use every day. So tool number two, the first one is to create some space for one to create some output every day. The second tool is so powerful, which you talked about, which is noticing what is going on inside of me, and more specifically, what is generating this negative experience, which we call the judge. And just noticing. And how do you notice that? Then you notice it because you're in this overwhelmed feeling, or you're in a negative state. Just noticing that is surprisingly a little bit challenging. So one invitation that can help people to recognize and to help move through this experience of overwhelm is to just be aware that you're in this experience of overwhelm, and then to blame it on your judge. So and then we call that in PQ intercepting the judge, intercepting the saboteur. And so just the active daily experience of taking a moment to notice that you're in a certain state, and then also recognizing that the judge is creating some type of story that is generating this state. is a really important aspect. And I want to go back to the verb, which is notice. Another piece of noticing, which you also mentioned, is that there's some really amazing stuff happening today. There's some great things that are happening today. Maybe even this video, maybe that is a thing, and just noticing it. Because when we notice it and we mark it in our little brain, boom, this thing awesome happened today. We want to notice that also. So we want to notice the thing that is great today, that is moving us on our step forward. Like for instance, today I'm going to go to this nearby island and press apples and make apple cider with my kids. Why is that important for me to notice that? Because one of my main goals is to be closer to my kids and to help them to develop into the people that they want to become. And this is one small step into doing that. So if I notice that I did that thing, then that's recognizing that I'm making progress towards something that I feel is valuable and worthy. So noticing is such an important aspect. Noticing when the judge is coming in and stirring stories up and telling lies about the situation, and then also noticing the good.
Yeah, and the image that we use in the PQ world that I think is helpful for most people to carry with them is this idea of getting your hand off the hot stove. So when we're in overwhelm, it's as though we've got our hand on a hot stove and we're keeping it there. And as we keep it there, it hurts more. So whatever the circumstances are that are leading to us feeling this way, take the step to get your hand off the hot stove, to recognize that at least part of what is making me feel this way is coming from inside me and not the circumstances out there. I can't specifically control what's going on outside of me. I can control how I'm responding to it. And right now, I choose to realize, yeah, my judge is playing a role here. And, the feelings that I'm having that make me feel bad, make me feel overwhelmed, I can control some of that. And
Yeah.
I'm choosing to take a step to do that right now.
I want to add a tool for that, because I think there's another piece here that is really great. And that is one of the tools that we can use is recognizing the gift, right? Let's recognize the gift here. In every situation, our brain might be saying, this is bad, this is overwhelming, this is the interpretation or the perception that our brain is making. But one way to expand the meaning of a situation is by asking the simple question: where's the gift?
Or at least, where's a gift?
A gift. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to come up with the perfect gift, but what's something good that can come out of me being in this situation that I can take with me, like you would take a gift with you? Yeah.
Jeff, I got some negative feedback about my precepting. I just think it's gonna, no one's gonna like me. I'm a bad doctor. I'm going down. Is there a gift there?
So what do you think? There are 3 buckets that we think of as ways we can convert these situations into gifts. What can we learn that will serve me and bring big rewards in the future? What mental muscle can become stronger by me going through this experience, that when an even bigger challenge than a resident providing that kind of feedback will serve me well to get me through to the other side? Or what might I be inspired to do that had I not been in this situation, I wouldn't have ever been inspired to like to exercise more, or to reach out to colleagues from my past that I haven't been in touch with for years, but who have similar roles to mine, or anything like that. So what do you think?
Well, one thing I learned is that somehow I'm making the residents feel like that I'm holding them back, and that it's taking too long to precept with me. So one thing I learned is to limit how much I'm teaching in the moment, but then maybe saving it to the very end, or not teaching something, and just taking the very most important thing, and putting myself in the role of the residents, and what do they want their day to be looking like, and they want their day to flow well. So that's a knowledge piece I think I learned. The other piece was, what was the second one again?
Um,
Oh, how did
Power.
the power,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
power. Yeah. Um, One thing I learned is that I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to get feedback all the time. And it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means that someone's trying to help me to grow. And I can use feedback as a way to recognize that here's an opportunity for me to grow. And being a person who wants to continue to grow and learn, I can say thank you, instead of saying, "Oh, you're putting me down again." And the third one
Was inspiration. But staying on the second one for a minute,
yeah.
because a few minutes before we started this recording, we talked about one PQ approach that could be helpful when you're getting this kind of feedback that is often um, in a being done in a very negative, um, you know, uh, guilt and shame provoking kind of way. And so to use the mental muscle of um, creativity and innovation to pull out the at least 10% of what's being dumped on me that I can say yes to,
Mm.
and say, yeah, I can see how that's good for me to hear that kind of information, and then add a creative and to it to say, and you know, here's something that I never would have thought about before, but that I might do with that information, or what other idea it sparks in me that just has it feel like a very different kind of energy than the punitive, you shouldn't be doing it this way, that it might feel like.
So I get the practice to convert the feeling of punitive into a feeling of creativity and innovation.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And the third one again was the inspiration.
Inspiration.
Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting that you said exercise, because I did just begin to commute by bike to work so I could get exercise. And what I noticed is that I'm so much more resilient to some of the complaints and things that I'm experiencing at work, that actually just by exercising and being inspired by getting myself into an energetic state has really helped. So interestingly, it's not a direct response to the negative feedback from precepting, but it does inspire me to want to have greater energy and resilience when I'm at work. So
So Chris, you've just twice in the last 30 seconds used a word that I know for some of our listeners might be a charged word.
Okay.
Resilience.
Oh.
Um, and I've heard docs that I really respect say things like, how much more resilient do you expect me to be? Aren't I already super resilient to be able to be doing my job given all this system crap that's going on around me? So what do you think? I know I've got some thoughts about that, but what do you think about that?
Yes. Well, what I think is where we are right now, this very moment, you and me, you, the listener, it is where we are. I mean, this is exactly what's happening. And is it possible that we can change things, the way what we make decisions for, and even potentially the system? Is it possible? It is possible. Is it going to take some time? It is going to take time. Are we guaranteed to be successful? No, you are not guaranteed to be successful in changing the system. Is it possible? Yes. Should I try? You should try, perhaps. Okay. But what you do have right now, this very moment, as you're listening to this video, is your experience of all that's happening around you. And so it is essential that we prioritize our self-development, our mental fitness, so that we can experience our world in a way that will allow us to feel greater positive emotion, to be able to be clear enough in our mind to make decisions and take action that is going to help us make the small progress we need to creating the thing that we want to create. So I don't think that necessarily fully defines what resilience is, but it does point again to the importance of self-development and our ability to expand how we think and how we interpret the circumstances in our life.
Yeah, yeah. And just to piggyback on what you said, um, docs often view this as kind of an either or situation. Either um, I'm doing mindfulness, diet, exercise stuff aimed at self-improvement, or it's the energy needs to be focused on all that system crap that's out there that is making my life so difficult, and keeping me from practicing medicine the way I felt like I wanted to when I went to med school. And what we're saying is it's and both. So it's, yes, there is way too much system stuff. And mostly the science says as an individual, we don't have very much control over that. That takes other kind of initiatives to try and make those system things different and better. So what can I do as an individual? I can try and make sure that for my piece that is within my control, I'm doing the best I can, and that includes um, doing what is best for me, and living a life as mentally fit as I can, so that I'm making choices that help me feel like I'm in alignment with what's important to me, what's best for the things that I care most about. And at the end of the day, I can feel like, what, I did a pretty good job, especially given the circumstances that I'm in. That's a very different kind of energy than a feeling like, oh, I'm overwhelmed at the end of the day. So how can we, help people to feel the first aspect, the first way of looking at the day
Yeah,
they just had, rather than this overwhelm?
love it. Well, let's begin to come to a close here as we're finishing this topic of overwhelm. Certainly not every aspect of it, but some ideas. So any last thoughts here? I know you just did a little bit of conclusion right there. I'm a doctor who is experiencing a lot of demands and my own pressure to be the best in the different roles that I kind of hold, and I often feel overwhelmed. Um, what are some last words as we move forward that kind of we can glean from this conversation that you're feeling, or as a message that you want to send?
Number one is we feel for you. The forces are such that more and more of these situations that can lead to people feeling overwhelmed are happening. So, we have empathy for our peers that are in the trenches feeling these kind of things every day. And we think this is actionable, that there are steps that you can take that are within your control that can lead to fewer and shorter feelings of overwhelm. And part of the way to do that is to be more mentally fit,
Yes.
to change the pattern of how we respond to these situations.
Yes. And I just want to say congratulations to you all because even by watching this video, you're already signaling to yourself that you're prioritizing this idea of mental fitness or self-development just by being here today, right now. This is an amazing action step that you're taking by being attentive and finishing this video and doing that. So the three things that came up for me as tools is number one, prioritizing yourself and your self-development. Number two is to notice, like today, you're going to go through the day. Can you notice when that feeling of overwhelm or some negative feeling is happening, and also noticing that the judge is that originator of it, but doesn't have to, that's not the whole story. Also notice that there's amazing things that you did today that are serving you towards the thing that's important, and you're doing your best you can to do that. And so congratulating yourself on that and marking that down, like I did that today. This is a step in the right direction. And lastly, is this, when you do notice that, oh, this is bad, just ask the simple question: is there a gift here? Or where is another gift here? And being able to take a moment to yourself to flip the idea that there is a gift in the thing that seems bad or challenging. There's a gift there, and seeing where you can leverage that will serve your highest purpose. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Jeff. And we plan to continue this conversation on different topics that have been important to our clients and ourselves as physicians. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.